much. I'm going to be just focusing on our plant allies this morning. And I'm not sure how many of you guys are tuning in live, so I'll just give it another minute or so before we jump on in. We're going to be heading down to the Washington Street Mills, sort of down by the river, to see what's going on around there. And just a heads up that my hope, of course, for this series is to show you the cycles of growth within the weeds that we meet, to see how they change over time. So there will be repeats, and I'm going to try to, change things up, keep it fresh, give you new information, or at least slightly different information every time, or additional information around the repeat herbs, and hopefully we'll continue to see some new ones as well, which I'm certainly will as the season goes on. I wanted to just take a moment to do a shout out to my teachers. Wendy Snowfrog of Misty Meadows was my very first herbal teacher. I learned so much from her. I want to do a shout out to Sage Popham, who is an incredible herbalist over the West Coast, around Washington State, and all the guidance that he's given me around even deepening my knowledge around astrology, which I hope to invite a little bit more into these walks as we go along. My gosh, there's so many. Kate Gilday, Carol Lazat. My gosh. So many teachers that I'm totally spacing. My pregnancy brain is kind of running thin. Matthew Wood, my goodness. Anne McIntyre. I just want to always, come back to just holding gratitude for those who brought me on this path and continue to deepen it and deepen the knowledge, because the path of even just foraging as an aspect of herbalism is forevermore. You just keep learning and growing, and there's just so much depth of knowledge within the plant world. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I started up on a side street because I found this beautiful plot of horsetail, and I don't see horsetail hardly at all in downtown areas. So I wanted to go ahead and just give you a nice look. So see how much I can focus in here, so you can see how beautiful. So this is really the perfect time to harvest horsetail. You see that the leaves, little needle leaves, are making a nice V shape. That means there is plenty of silica in there, but not too much for us to absorb. And they're really easy to harvest. You would just snap it by the stem, and go ahead and either dry it and make fresh tea. You could do whatever you wanted around this plant. We talked about it being a Saturnian herb. You can see the whorls, the little joints, and the whorls of leaves, which kind of represent boundaries, which Saturn very much has with its rings. And with Saturnian herbs, we're talking about hair, skin, and nails, joints, rebuilding the structure of our bodies. So this is really wonderful for people, especially who have creaky joints, creaky knees, dried, kind of aching joints. Not so much arthritic conditions, although this is an anti-inflammatory plant, but it's about bringing more moisture and minerals back to support, the cartilage and the bone structure. For people who have really kind of dry, brittle nails, dry skin, again, really rich and nutrient rich and rebuilding and tonifying these areas of the body. A beautiful plant, and how cool to think about that this plant was around with the dinosaurs. I just love thinking about that. I think it's such a fascinating piece of horsetail. So I wanted to kind of show you, as you're scouting around your neighborhoods. Ooh, and actually I see some back there that are past their prime that maybe I can focus in on. So it's a little far away. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it with my phone. I'm literally on someone's yard. Okay, so that's not going to work. But I've already told you that this one's a little bit. So this guy back here, you can see he's almost widespread. So arms out to the side. That's, I don't even know if I would harvest him because it's like almost at maximum capacity. You could, but you just don't want those needles out straight side to the side. That just means we can't absorb all the content. It actually would be harmful for our kidneys and bodies to actually absorb the amount of content of silica that it now would contain. So this is like the last day of this horsetail, but they'll get even more widespread. So better example there. But these guys are perfect right here. So horsetail. All right, let's go ahead and we're gonna start our walk down. And again, I apologize, it's gonna be just kind of staring at the road because I can't, well, I suppose I can flip back and forth, but you don't need to see my face. Oh, here's a beautiful plot of, I haven't even gotten to the mill part yet, but it's okay. It's hard to resist. Look at these beautiful violets. So we saw the violets without leaves, without flowers rather, at our last weed walk. So Viola odorata, these gorgeous sweet violets. This is the best time to eat them. They're so sweet, but a little bit bitter. Delicious greens to add to any of your salads, even soups. It is a little slimy to cook with because the insides have that mucilage. But such a beautiful spring green. People who have a lot of violets will be making violet jams and jellies, and of course it turns whatever you're infusing into this beautiful blue color, so it's kind of fun to play with. This time of year I'm often making nettle cupcakes, and I adorn the tops of my frosting with violet flowers because they're just so gorgeous. Some people make violet candied or violet candy or candied violets, where really they're just kind of applied to, like a sugar coating is applied to them. They kind of crystallize, and so they're even prettier to add to desserts and whatnot. But just as a refresher, this is a heart ally for anxiety. Look at our heart signature here. It's great for calming the monkey brain when that is really, a challenge for you around, just during the day, but also at night when you're trying to rest. It helps to dissolve those cysts and growth in the body, whether it's uterine or fibroid or otherwise. Therefore, it supports the liver function of our bodies. It's very gentle, but it's very powerful in the way of its support for the lymphatic system. So this is a great ally to combine with dandelion flowers for infusing into oils. This is the time to do it. And you would be using the leaf and the flower here. All right, let's see if we can actually make our way down to the mill and stop bothering these people, although I don't think anyone's outside. Got some garlic mustard here. I know we'll see more down by the river, so I'm not going to pause. Get us down to our specific location here, and we'll keep on going. This is such a nice day out. I have like my scarf on. I thought it was going to be a little bit more brisk. All right. Someday I'll have a nice big yard like this. The condo doesn't quite allow for such things where I live, but someday. You can see the beautiful dandelions in bloom. Again, this is the great time to get those blooms. So leaves and blossoms. All right, coming around the corner to the mill, we'll jump right in to whatever pops up. It's even kind of cool to see what's left over from the winter. So let me see if I can't grab this. Yeah, so this is kind of a skeleton of mugwort. So we saw the teeny tiny leaves the other day. Now this is kind of what was left from last season. So this is how tall the plant can get, and even taller than that. But it's neat to see all the variations. All right, I'm gonna cross the road after the truck passes. All right, thanks for bearing with me, this little jaunt. I just really wanted to show you that horsetail because I just don't see it. I was very surprised to see it this year. One thing about live streaming is I just can't zoom in with my camera phone, which is a bummer. So it has to be up close. I just saw some self-heal on someone's lawn, but I'm like, there's no way I can I can zoom in on that one. All right, so let's go ahead, scoot on down. All right. So I'm just gonna start scouting out the area. I always kind of come in with fresh eyes, see what is gonna jump out at us. Sometimes the most potent medicinals are right underneath our feet and we don't even notice them. So I know this corner always often has a good amount. Did you know that this park actually is managed organically in Dover, which is so nice? Not many of them are, but this one is. So it's great to find some of those medicinals. Okay, well, let's start with this first friend here. We saw a teeny tiny version of it on our first walk. And here we go again. So this is plantain. This is, I believe it's Plantago major. There's also Plantago rugelli. And forgive me because this moment, I can't recall which is which. One has purple veins and one does not. And I want to say that it's the rugelli that has purple, but I will go ahead and confirm that when I get home. So this is Plantago major, I think, or either way, Plantago major and Plantago rugelli are identical in their use, so it doesn't matter which you have. This is such a cool plant because it does grow everywhere, and it loves to grow where it gets stomped on. Like, it likes really compacted, smashed soils, so that it will grow anywhere. You'll always see it on lawns, you'll always see it in wastelands, and that's the thing with a lot of these wild medicinals. They just will grow in the grossest places. But again, a lot of the reason is to help purify and clean up the soil. So Plantago major, or plantain, one of my favorite first aid herbs. So in a pinch, if you're out on a trail, you get bit by a bee or just stung by something, you can go ahead and just, of course, ask permission. We always want to do that. Pluck a leaf, chew it up, and then spit it out and stick it wherever you got bit, and helps to draw out, the venom or whatever it might be, the irritant that the insect injected into your skin, and help to draw it out. It's cooling and it's drawing, which is so amazing. And it doesn't really taste that bad. It's a little bit bitter, but not too bad. And it has that mucilage again. So similar to when I was talking about violet, it's kind of slimy inside. And that helps, anything that has that helps to soothe the tissues. And it's like, it's like an emollient. It like moisturizes, it calms, it cools. And so it actually has that same effect internally. So for folks with leaky gut syndrome, ulcers, irritated digestion, heated digestion where maybe it's diarrhea, even hemorrhoids, things like that, it's very soothing, it's very cooling. And this is the time to utilize it, not only just because it just popped up, but because it's better fresh. Dried plantain is not, I'm not saying you can't use it, but it doesn't last very long. When you are harvesting and drying herbs, you want to maintain three things: the color, the smell, and the flavor. And with plantain, and actually I should mention this with violet leaf as well, you just lose those things really, really easily, really quickly. So they're harder to maintain vitality. So fresh is best, but one of the best ways to preserve plantain leaf, and you would want to, I'm really talking about the leaf right now, so this is the time to harvest it. You can actually wait for it to get quite a bit bigger if you'd like. Yeah, you probably should. This is very tiny. But is to infuse it into oil. You can even like grind it up, like puree, like get your magic bullet out, puree it up, and then put it in ice cube trays and have like some people do with culinary herbs. You can do that with plantain and just have like a big bag of plantain cubes at your disposal through the winter. And when you need to use it, you just pop one out, and utilize it however you would, even if it's adding it to, because the flavor of plantain it can be blended pretty well. So you can add it to smoothies, you can add it to soups, you can just let it thaw out and apply it as a poultice, or, make it, add it to a tea if you're doing the internal use with plantain. So it's a little, kind of tidbit there of a different way to have plantain through the winter, but you can certainly dry it. It's just not going to last as long. All right, other uses for plantain. When we look at plants, very often you see a signature. So you kind of, when you're looking at the leaf, like, what does it remind you of? You know, and of course we could brainstorm lots of different things that kind of come up into our minds, but the tongue is one of them. So when you think about the shape of the leaf, it looks kind of like a big tongue, like a wide, juicy tongue. Of course with ribs on it, but we'll just ignore that part. So it has an affinity for the mouth and for oral health. I'm a big fan of oil pulling, which is swishing with oil like you would mouthwash. And so I love infusing oil. I'll often use coconut because that's my choice for oil pulling. I'll infuse plantain into my coconut oil and then use that as my oil pulling. So it's this added sort of perk to regular oil that you're adding some medicinal components to. Why is it great for the mouth? Because it's very mucilaginous. It has that mucilage, it's coating, it's soothing, it draws things out. So when we're thinking about bacteria, you know, stuck in the gums, or infection from an ulcer, or just general, you know, the wear and tear that we do to our dental health through eating foods and sugars and whatnot. Maybe we have a bad routine, so once in a while our teeth get our gums get inflamed. Plantain helps to draw things out. I was in a car accident a long time ago, and I had, you know, inadvertently, within getting hit by someone, chewed up my tongue really, really badly. And I remember being in the ER room, and my sister was with me, and I couldn't talk very well because of my tongue. And I was trying to tell her, go get me plantain. Like, I need some plantain to chew on so that I could heal my mouth. And I was trying to describe to her where to find it. I'm like, it's gonna be anywhere. I'm like, just go on the parking lot, because at that point I'm like, I didn't care where it came from. I'm like, I just need something to chew on. So so it was so funny. She eventually came back with a couple leaves, and I was just chewing on it. And of course the doctors are like, what's in your mouth? I'm like, I'm just chewing on a leaf. I'm like, it's just helping. But it really did help the pain. It helped to heal, you know, because the mouth heals pretty quickly to begin with, but plantain really steps it up. So it was enabling me to heal my chewed up tongue even more quickly. And it was just like a funny story to share, because, you know, people think herbalists are nuts sometimes. What else can I say about plantain? There's so many virtues. It is a liver supporter. It's great for digestion, especially, you know, a cooling, but also it's great for the dry, you know, constipation and slow, dry digestive issues as well. So it can lube things up. So again, if you're out camping and you're having some digestive woes, grab a handful of plantain and just start nibbling on it, and can really help to coat and soothe and just move things out as well. I'm gonna wait on, because we can talk about the flower and the seeds, but I'm gonna wait for the growth cycle to kind of shift around, and I'll bring that up the next time around, because it won't be too long before we see some more growth. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. And let's see what we have down here. Excuse my sniffles. All right. Let's go ahead and, I know we're going to see more of that later, so I just want to see if there's any tiny beginnings of some friends down here, because there often is. And actually, I don't mean to go this way. I meant to go around. I don't need to be sliding down some weird black tarp. Oh, they seem to have cleaned up quite a bit. That's one of the cons when the city is on top of stuff and they're actually cleaning up the area. All right, do I see anything? All right, let's keep, well, this plant is calling me back this way. Like, I'm the best example, I promise. Come back and talk to me, talk about me here. So I'll do that, and then I'll keep on going. All right, so this beautiful plant, and it is a really gorgeous example, is this one right here. We'll just kind of move that guy out of the way. There's a few things, but this right here is Queen Anne's lace, or wild carrot. It's such a beautiful, gosh, just so feminine, I think. You know, it's just like the ferny leaves, so gorgeous. typically speaking, when you begin to learn how to identify herbs and wild medicine, it's really important to tune into the smell. It's one of the best indicators because you don't have to taste it, you can smell it. And so if you were to pull a little leaf off and kind of crush it in your hands and smell it, it actually does smell like carrot. Even more so if you were given permission and you were in an area that you could do it, it's, you know, safe, it wasn't like someone else's property, you could dig up the root and it would be this tiny little white carrot, and that for sure will smell like carrot and even taste like carrot. So there are lots of volatile oils in Queen Anne's lace, and if you've ever bought a Burt's Bee product, you know, back in the day when they were first starting out, they had a lot more products that had carrot in it, like carrot soap and carrot face oil, and I think they still have a good amount of it, but not as much as they initially did. So this is the carrot that they're talking about. It's the wild carrot, and that's because it has so many wonderful anti-aging and skin healing properties in the essential oil, in the volatile oil, which is really contained more so in the seeds of the plant, and we'll see that as we follow its growth cycle through flower and seed, and in the root. I use it actually in one of my facial serums, the essential oil that is, and it's such an interesting scent because it really is just carroty, but it's a really wonderful regenerator to the skin, reverses a lot of damage through its antioxidant content. So that's a really cool kind of thing to consider. But when you want to utilize the entire plant, right, and not just the essential oil, you think about infusing the leaves and the flowers and the seeds right on into the oil itself. And actually, as I'm saying that, I'm realizing that the seeds have the most essential oil content. So a lot of the when you buy a wild carrot seed essential oil, you're most likely getting it from the seeds and not the roots, although you can use the entire plant for those volatile oils. The seeds are always going to be the most potent aside from the root when you're talking about plants here. Because of those volatile oils, which exist in the entirety of this plant, it's really helpful for digestion and elimination of gas and just kind of stagnation through the body. So leaves as tea, flower tops as tea, and you know, this is the plant that has the beautiful white lacy flowers with the red dot in the middle, hence the name Queen Anne's lace, the story of Queen Anne who pricked her finger while creating I guess some type of embroidery or lace making, but that is the plant. So if you might already know what it looks like, and of course we'll see it somewhere down the road as we continue on, but digestion, flatulence, just clearing the blood as well. And one of the most well-known uses of this plant that I have played with from time to time is that of reproductive health. Okay, so Queen Anne's lace can be used not only to stimulate reproduction, it can also curtail it, if you will, and be used as a contraceptive. So it really depends on what you're going for. Talking about leaf and flower again, it's wonderful for helping to slough off the uterine wall, okay? And so it's great for menstrual cycles. So when you're bleeding and you're trying, you know, if you have a lot of, if you're a heavy bleeder, if you perhaps struggle with endometriosis, clots in the blood, this plant can really, really help to move it out, move that stagnation of blood, use those volatile oils and that warming capacity to flush it out. Flowers and seeds are the most potent to be tinctured together and utilized as contraception, but the way that you would do that is to take, and actually this is a shout out to Robin Rose Benet. She is the one who actually did a study, I think it was like a 10-year study with volunteers to utilize this medicine as contraception. So I would absolutely look her up if you aren't familiar with her work. She's amazing. So you would use the flower and seed tincture. I believe it's I might be getting this wrong, 3 to 8 drops after having intercourse. So it's used after, but what's so cool is that you can use that same tincture on a regular basis, and it helps to stimulate and tonify all of the reproductive organs to be vital and receptive for creating life, for keeping that uterus ready and able to have the egg and sperm meet and create life. So plants are really cool that they offer sort of both sides of the coin depending on how you're using them. So it really is so important to know when to take your medicine and not just what, okay, and how to make it. So Queen Anne's lace, super cool for reproduction. Look up Robin Rose Benet, and I'm going to talk about this plant more as we revisit it through its cycle. Okay, such a pretty plant. Let's continue on. See if we can walk a little bit more than 10 feet at a time. It's getting warm out here. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Holy moly. Okay, look who we have here. Of course, I'm right in the shadow. That's annoying. All right, hold on, I'm moving myself out of the shadow. Hopefully so you can see who we have here. Trying to focus. Apologize, I'm a one-woman show this morning. This is stinging nettle, and this is such an exciting friend to see in downtown Dover, growing on the side of the road, right next to the river. So cool. Oh my gosh, I love this plant so much. And actually right next to a pile of our friend plantain as well. So I'm trying to get low enough. Sorry guys, I'm maneuvering with this new body is very interesting for me. Okay, so hopefully you can see. Real up close, you can see those little tiny hairs. Okay, and these hairs have an acid that is secreted, and it's really painful. Actually, this I'm not going to play with it too much. But the sting of nettle is actually just as medicinal as taking the plant itself. So a lot of people, specifically for arthritic conditions, will intentionally, and herbalists will suggest this, intentionally whip themselves with stinging nettle to wake the joints up, to increase circulation, to actually help with the pain of arthritic conditions. And it works. Yes, it's going to leave welts initially. Yes, it's going to itch a little bit, but then as it subsides, it's going to really diminish the pain within the arthritic joint. It's so cool. And it not only that, but like just for general health, like it wakes up your immune system. It really just kind of whips your whole body into like a response of like, whoa, all right, let's keep things moving. Let's wake everything up. Let's make sure, you know, our blood and lymph is flowing. It's such a nutritive plant. Here's actually a little tiny guy. So cute. Right next door. So the way that the sting influences the body externally is really how the plant stimulates you internally as well in many ways, because it's such a tonic medicine. It's such a, not even, I mean, it is tonifying, but it's so nutritive. It's like a powerhouse multivitamin herb. It has so many minerals, nutrients. It has protein, iron, magnesium. Like there's so many different elements to this plant that you should just be eating it every single day. I harvested a bunch of this last week from my gardens in Bedford, and I have it just like I add it to my smoothies. I add it, anything that calls for cooked spinach, you can use nettle instead. And yes, it does sting, but not after you cook it or chop it or grind it or dry it. When you dry it, I will say for tea, it can still get you a little bit. It's happened to me where I'm like processing the herbs, I'm kind of crumbling the dried leaves, and it'll zap me still sometimes. But I will say that the more that nettle sort of attacks you and stings you, the more you need it. The more you need it. And don't forget that, I believe I talked about this. Did I talk about this the first class? Maybe I didn't. But plants grow where they are needed. So check out, you know, your area, even if you're just renting, even if you've rented just for a year or two, take a peek. What is growing around you? Plants want to help us, and especially if you've been in a place for a little while, notice what plants are coming and going, because they are for you. They are for the people living in that building or in that area. It's an amazing, amazing thing. Everyone can benefit from nettle. Nettle is a wonderful ally just for general nervous system health. I'm gonna just shift over here and see if I can still get a good shot. Okay. So for people who are trying to get off of caffeine and wanting to get energy elsewhere, you know, and of course coffee, if coffee is your caffeine of choice, you know, sometimes it's the ritual, sometimes it's the flavor, sometimes, you know, there's lots of reasons that people are attached to their caffeinated beverages. And I will tell you that nettle is not going to give you that flavor or that same experience if you're having nettle tea, but it will give you that energy boost when you are drinking it consistently. And I always encourage people to do overnight infusions versus just like a 10-15 minute steep of, you know, a tea bag. So steeping your herbs overnight, you know, hot water, cover it, cap it, and then strain it in the morning, either drinking it room temperature, putting it in the fridge for iced, or reheating it and drinking it all day long. Nettle is one of those. So nettle is at the top of my list for energy booster herb, maybe throwing some red clover in there as well, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. It's so great at, I mean, really it touches upon, when you think of the nervous system, that's our whole body from head to toe. So it really just utilizes everything in the body, and it helps to just make everything function more readily and with more strength behind it. So digestion, inflammatory response for chronic inflammation issues, liver support, nourishing the herbs, you know, nourishing the herbs. I suppose it does nourish other herbs when you blend them with other herbs, but nourishing the nervous system. You know, our nervous system, you know, gosh, just the stress, our adrenal health, all of those things just take a beating on a regular basis. Nettle helps to rebuild these things. More specifically, we talked about arthritis. That's externally with the sting and internally. We can talk about hair, skin, and nail support. This can be combined with our friend horsetail. We can talk about, again, we talked about energy. For women who are moving into motherhood and perhaps wanting to breastfeed, it helps with milk production. It helps stimulate just happy digestive flow. It helps to, again, calm any sort of just, you know, inflammatory response in the body, and not in the sense of pain relief, although it can topically with arthritis, but in the sense of just bringing the body back to balance in a very gentle way. So this is why, like, this herb in particular, it's like food. You don't have to worry about overdoing it. It'll just always nourish your body. It's one of my favorite remedies to, and this, we're talking about the leaf right here, leaf aerial plants, so from the stem up, like what we're seeing right here. For removing gout and removing excess fluid from the body, even for folks trying to lose some weight. It's a really great herb because it is a diuretic, so it does work on the kidneys to move excess water out. And so it is a little bit drying, so I will say, although I think everyone can benefit from nettle, it is on the drier side. So if you know you are on the side where you just tend to run drier and you tend to you know, have dry hair, skin, and nails, are typically pretty thirsty, you would want to add a plant like violet leaf with nettle because that just brings a little bit more of that moisture back. So it's a little bit less diuretic and a little bit more moistening to your tissues. And with most plants, I will say, they do make you pee. All of them are a little bit diuretic, nettle even more so. But what's really great, and especially for, you know, people who struggle with incontinence, especially children who are bedwetters, what typically is going on there, there's lots of things going on there. It's a mental, emotional piece too, but physiologically, it's from weak kidney and weak bladder sort of conditions. So nettle helps to strengthen and rebuild by that diuretic action of kind of forcing or supporting the kidneys to work a little bit harder and therefore strengthening them. So it's not always going to be, when you have nettle tea, you're going to be peeing your brains out all day long. It will balance out. Just like when you start hydrating yourself more, at first you're peeing a whole lot and then it starts to level out. So nettle works in that same way. Well, I'm so excited that we have spotted our friend nettle right here in Dover. This is kind of like, I've seen it maybe once before, and that's actually what I was hoping to see earlier, but not in this exact spot, so that means she's spreading, and that's a pretty cool thing. All right, let's go ahead and keep on moving a little bit. And see what else we can find. And I'm stripping down. Took my jacket off, it's so nice. I think the rest of the week is going to be rainy again, so I'm enjoying this time out. Some violets starting. Well, let's go ahead and take a pause here. Make sure I'm not sitting in any dog poop. There's usually quite a bit of it around here. Okay, so right here we've got, let's see if I can't. In fact, Mikhail, are the shots I'm giving you okay? Let me know if they're like really blurry. It's hard for me to tell sometimes with where the sun is. Just let me know with a thumbs up or a comment if you can. I want to make sure I'm focusing in enough for you guys to distinguish what I'm showing you. So right here is our friend chickweed, and it's not the star chickweed that we're most commonly seeing. It's actually called, this is the mouse-eared chickweed, and you might be able to notice this fuzzy little hairs all over the place. It's not quite in bloom. Not seeing any flowers yet. Okay, excellent, thank you, Mikhail. But it's used interchangeably, I will say. My preference, and hopefully, I don't know if we'll see any star chickweed around here today, but they are used interchangeably. So this is mouse-eared chickweed, then there's star chickweed, which is more commonly used. The flowers are tiny little white flowers, and actually, these are some buds that might be forming here. But what I love about this plant, maybe not this one in particular, sorry mouse-eared chickweed, you're a little furry. I mean, you could absolutely eat this as a spring green, but your sister plant, star chickweed, is not quite as hairy, and so it's a little bit more delicious. But this plant is really wonderful as a spring green. It's really rich in vitamins A and C, and just of course that rich chlorophyll, and it's readily available on people's lawns quite prevalently with dandelions and plantains, so keeping your eyes peeled. The way that I like to use chickweed is in conjunction actually with nettle sometimes, if we're looking for that water flushing component of that diuretic action. Actually, chickweed's not so diuretic as it is about finding excess water that isn't needed in the body and helping to move it out, as well as fat cells, which is kind of cool. So for people who are struggling with excess fat or even cellulite buildup, which is very normal and natural for everyone to have, but if you feel there's a buildup there, this plant can help to flush the excess out. Topically, this is another wonderful plant to infuse into your oils. So I mentioned plantain being a really wonderful skin healer for drawing things out. You know, I didn't mention splinters and those types of things. I was kind of focusing on bug bites and bee stings, but same thing. Anything to draw things out. Chickweed falls into the same category, and it is also very cooling and drawing. So it has a very similar nature to plantain, but it's a lot more juicy and water rich. And it actually, I will say that it dries a little bit better than plantain. Still loses some of its vitality. The color goes pretty fast, but the smell and the flavor usually keep if you were to go ahead and dry some of this. So infusing into oils, using in lotions, great for combining with, let's say, St. John's wort and maybe mullein flower for ear infections or for swimmer's ear. Again, because it helps to really pull and draw things out, and it's soothing, it's coating, it's a little bit juicier than plantain. such a wonderful friend just as a spring green. Adding it to pestos, any of these herbs can be added to pestos, which is a really great thing. I love, utilizing the violet leaf and the dandelion leaf and chickweed and even plantain, and adding whatever your favorite cheese is, and garlic, and I don't use pine nuts because I don't know, they're fine, but I kind of prefer different kinds of nuts to use, almonds or walnuts, whatever, and then just grind it all up with olive oil, and it's so delicious to use. So this is the time to be eating your plants, eating your weeds, getting that wild medicine in you. So mouse-eared chickweed. So I'm hoping we can come back to this spot and see the cute little white mouse-eared flowers in a couple more weeks. But such an awesome first aid herb, flushes the fat, flushes excess fluid, coating and soothing. It's also called maiden wort. So there's mugwort, there's cronewort, and there's maidenwort, and this is the maiden. And as I'm saying this, I'm remembering that infusing the oil, infusing this plant into oil is a really great lubricant. So it helps to keep things juicy. So especially if vaginal dryness is an issue for you, if you're moving towards perimenopause or menopause, and you need a little bit more lubrication. Of course, there's lots of other things you can touch upon, but for the topical, just general kind of quick fix support, using chickweed infused oil is really lovely. And just even for, having a little fun with yourself or a partner, for a little extra natural lube would be great. And of course, I think most of us know that oil-based lubes are not safe with condoms, but otherwise super safe to use however you would desire. So a little tidbit there. And actually in my same breath, because it brings that juiciness back, using it when you're feeling dry. So again, this is, even though it's called maidenwort because of these qualities, but you actually utilize it maybe later in life as our tissues start to dry up. That's kind of physiologically what happens over time when, I don't like to focus on aging because I think that's kind of, we're taught that it's normal, and it's not necessarily so. I think in the way in which we age, it's more of like a disease or a habit that we let ourselves go, and we just don't take as good care of ourselves. But of course, there's a component of truth within, yes, our bodies change over time. But maidenwort or chickweed can bring some of that juiciness back into all of our tissues. So it's a really great herb to utilize for that, to not only flushing the excess fluid that we might not need, especially for people who just retain water, but for those of us who are drier and want to absorb more of that juiciness within our joints, within our skin, within all of our secretions, chickweed is our pal there. All right, moving on. There's a little bit of garlic mustard coming up here, but I want to wait till it's a little bit larger. In fact, I know we passed that other plot, but I was hoping we'd have a bigger section, which unless they cut it down, it's always hard to tell. Lots of friends. I'm going to pause that. I'm just trying to find a good spot, which maybe has a handful of them at once. Well, I feel like I want to pause here for a second, just because it's not a medicinal. Oh, the word juiciness. Yes, it's a good word, Mikhail. It's not one that I use often, but this is an aster, and this is a wood aster. And we're not going to see the flowers during our weed walks here because it blooms at the end of the season. But I wanted to point it out because it's such an important plant for the pollinators. So, we've got these beautiful dandies behind us kind of popping up for all the early pollinators, but we have to feed them all the way through to the end of the season. So asters are one of the last things to bloom for our pollinators. So I just wanted to point it out because it's so my gosh, I'm losing my words. So valuable, so important to keep our pollinators fed and happy before their long commute, or perhaps they're reproducing and dying off. You know, it's different for all of them, but asters are so key. Now, purple aster, which will be here at some point, and I can't, this is the woodland aster, so this is not the deep purple one. Jim McDonald, who's another amazing teacher whom I love, talks a lot about the wild purple aster for heart, not heart, but for lung, congestive sort of lung issue that I encourage you to look up to learn more about. I don't know as much as he does on that topic, but he does talk about the New England purple aster in that regard. But this guy, all the asters are late bloomers and so important for our pollinator friends. I wanted to just pause and talk about that for a moment. We've got our beautiful dandies. Got lots of mugwort. I'm just trying to find a good patch to show you. Oh, we have another pile of mouse. Oh, look. Okay, excellent. I wasn't expecting this. But here we have our little mouse-eared chickweed in bloom. So adorable. So what you can notice here, hold on a second, is, see if I can zoom in enough, that each petal has a little sort of serration that looks like a double petal, but it's not, like little mouse ears, so hence the name. Such a sweet little friend. And this example is a lot less hairy, so this would actually be a lot better than the last patch we saw to nibble on and enjoy in our foods, etc. Yay! I'm so glad I saw you guys. Hold on a second, make sure I am correctly IDing you. Yes, so this is the mouse-eared. Just wanted to show you those beautiful little blooms. Okay. Now we talked, I don't know if we talked about evening primrose yet. My memory is failing me these days, but we have an enormous patch right here, so I'm gonna go ahead, plop down, and jump right in. So these are all teeny tiny little baby evening primrose. They grow in whorls like dandelion, as you can see. And there's so many of them. So they can actually get much bigger, and I'll show you momentarily. In fact, actually, if I back it up and I show you this old stalk from last season and how tall it is, this guy gets really tall, like you know, 8 feet tall, like really tall. So this is an evening primrose stalk. So that's how big these guys will get. And I don't know that all of them will get that, because these are kind of all clustered, and sometimes when they crowd each other, they won't grow as tall. But all of these, they will lose their red. Most new growth will start off as reddish purple and then push out towards green as the season goes. But evening primrose, I'm just trying to find a good one to land on for you guys as I chat your ear off for a second. We'll start there. Is really known for its content of GLAs and omega essential fatty acids that, and really omega-6 is the essential fatty acid that it provides us. And we don't get this variety a lot. It's hard for our bodies to produce. Some of it can be found in nuts and seeds, but this particular GLA oil is really specific to this plant. And why do we need essential fatty acids? Well, for lots of different reasons, but evening primrose offers, especially for women, hormonal balance and the balancing of the estrogen, androgen, progesterone throughout our lives, and especially going through, again, our change through the years, perimenopause into menopause, when things get a little bit more jumbled. And it's a really wonderful tool to help ease us into those hormonal transitions. What's cool about this is that when you go to a health food store and you buy evening primrose, it's in the oil form. And the oil is pressed out from the seeds, and we kind of saw the seed pods, what was left over of them over here. So these of course have all fallen out, but those are where the seeds were before they came out. And with any oil, you know, it takes a lot of seed, a lot of pressed seed to get much out of it, right? So as herbalists and as foragers, we can utilize the entire plant to receive the same medicine, not just from the oil, but from the aerial parts of the plant all the way up to the blossoms. So it certainly might not be as potent as the seeds, because as I was saying, root and seeds contain the most medicine for plants in general. It's the most potency, and certainly the pressed oils. But if we're taking this regularly, we're just giving ourselves small dose or smaller doses, but over a good length of time. So we can tincture the entire aerial parts of the plant. I would probably wait for it to flower to get all of it. Or another way to tincture things is to tincture everything separately within its cycle. So tincture the leaves, maybe wait a little bit longer for these guys because they're so tiny, but tincture the leaves when the leaves are at their prime, tincture the flowers when they're in their prime, and then tincture even the root when it's in its prime, and then combine all of your tinctures together so that you're getting the highest potency of all parts of the plant. So that's another way to do it, but you could certainly just wait for the flower stalks to show and then go ahead and just tincture the aerial parts. So certainly you can drop, $30 to $40 a bottle for the evening primrose oil in health food stores, and certainly you'll get a more specific dose, but you can also make your own and just continue to dose yourself regularly in smaller amounts, but it still will be more systemic. And the thing about taking any herbal medicine is that when we're starting to remove one part of the plant and just utilize that separate from the whole plant, is that it sometimes acts differently. That's why a lot of standardized herbal medicine can shock the body and maybe start behaving like a pharmaceutical in many ways, because it's not with the rest of its body, right? It's not working as a whole. And so it's always interesting to pause and consider what happens when we're just taking one part of the plant, and extracting it from the whole. Just a thought there. Mikhail, what are you saying not yet about? I missed something. I didn't catch that. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing a question or something. Just let me know if I missed something there. All right. Everyone's out with their pups. Okay, here we go. We have a nice little plot of yarrow right here, actually, coming out of the gravel. That's so funny. Oh, thank you, Mikhail. Yes, I haven't gone over it yet. Okay, excellent. Thank you. So we have some little yarrow sprouts popping up through the gravel. I'm on this huge plot of gravel that just was thrown here for who knows, but how funny that yarrow's like, that's not gonna stop me. I'm coming right up through. Of course, Mikhail, my pleasure. And actually, we've got some primrose coming up through the gravel too. But we're gonna focus on our friend yarrow, and this is white yarrow. So if you are, try to get nice and close for you guys. Such a beautiful friend. This was my hero. I mentioned my car accident. I broke both my ankles and one of my fingers. Gosh, it was like 2006, so it was a long time ago. But yarrow is for trauma, any sort of trauma, and this means like mental, emotional trauma as well as physical trauma. And so I drank bucket loads of yarrow tea, and actually I combined it with dogwood, Jamaican dogwood for pain, because I didn't want to take regular pain meds. And so I am very familiar with the flavor of yarrow, and I love this plant dearly. I can't tell you that it's my favorite flavor just because I had to drink so much of it. But it's very like piney, I would say, almost like like very woodsy, piney, like the pine, like white pine type of flavor. And but it's so powerful. It's powerful for so many things. So the Latin name is Achillea millefolium. So Achillea, you think of Achilles, perhaps, the Greek story of Achilles' mother holding him by as a young boy, or actually I don't know how old Achilles was when she did this, but holding him by his heels to dip him into this protective armor that's like, I think it was like a liquid river or some type of liquid that totally covered his entire body except for his Achilles heel to protect him during war and when he went out to fight. And of course the end of the story is that someone knew about this story of the protective armor and found his Achilles heel because she was holding him by the heel, so sliced him there and he bled out. So two different things to mention here from that story. One is the protective mechanism that yarrow has. Energetically speaking, and like spiritually speaking, like the flower essence, all of the yarrows have this, but the white yarrow in particular, which is the wild one, because you'll see the pink and the yellow like at florists and whatnot. So white is what we're talking about here. It is so protective for our energetic bodies, for our auras, for our for people who are really sensitive, just to being infiltrated by life, or maybe we're people who have a harder time processing, you know, other people's energy or the energy of the world, like right, you know, like what we're all going through now with this pandemic. It's a lot to process. Just the reality of what's going on, all the different information, everyone's opinions. It's a lot of energy rolling around, and for those of us who have, and actually really anyone, but especially for those of us who just feel like they have weaker armor, if you will, and they're easily infiltrated and affected by energies around them, yarrow is so vitally important to use. And it really does work like a shield. So the flower essence can be used. FES, Flower Essence Society, makes a yarrow environmental solution that works really well for this purpose, but you can also just find white yarrow essence as well, and it will help to, again, build the strength of your energetic body and literally create a stronger force field. You know, it's important for us to process our life's experiences, but sometimes when we're very sensitive, it's a lot and we need some help to do so. So yarrow is there for you. The other piece of this story of Achilles is the blood. So yarrow rules the blood. And I was mentioning earlier about Queen Anne's lace and how she has the ability to help being more fertile or act as a contraceptive depending on how and when you use the medicine. Well, yarrow also helps to rule the blood in the way that if you're, say, your blood is very thin, it helps to build it up and thicken it. If your blood is really thick, it helps to thin it and dissolve some of those clots. So therefore, it can be a really great ally, especially for those who are on like high blood pressure meds, or people who are told to take an aspirin every day just to get ahead of blood clots. Yarrow is a great alternative. It certainly has so many other properties to it, but it's a really great blood balancer. For women who have scanty periods, or female body people, I should say, if they too scanty or too heavy, again, yarrow can help to balance out the blood, bringing your natural balance into play. It's a really brilliant herb in that way. The reason I was taking it so much when I broke my ankles was because it helps to move stagnancy and dead blood. So I was totally bruised up, obviously, and black and blue, and it really helped to move out the bruises pretty quickly, pretty readily. It's also a wonderful remedy for making a fever come to head and break. Fevers are important. They can be scary, but they also are helping to kill off what the body's trying to kill off, whether it's a bacterial infection or viral infection, whatever it might be. It helps to enable the fever process to not be so drawn out, but to break and to really move on to the next stage of the healing process. It's an antiviral, it is an antimicrobial, it is anti-inflammatory, so it calms chronic inflammation. It's definitely not a plant that you take all of the time. It's gentle, but it has really specific uses that you use for specific reasons, right? So it's not like dandelion, it's not like nettle where you can just take it forevermore. I love infusing the plant, and this is the aerial plant I'm talking about at the moment, so leaves, flower, stem, to infuse into oil for like a bruise balm, like an arnica balm, if you will. So adding it to, like, maybe you have infused plantain, infused chickweed, infused yarrow, you combine it together and you've got a little natural neosporin for cuts and burns and bruises. So it's a really wonderful ally in that regard. If you tincture it, when I say tinctures can be in alcohol, tinctures can be in vinegar, tinctures can be in glycerin, vegetable glycerin. There's lots of menstruums to use. You could even infuse herbs into honey. But in this case, alcohol is the strongest preservative, so I always like to use alcohol for most of my tinctures. But certainly you can use any sort of vehicle or menstruum. And when you do so, and even for those of you who are alcohol sensitive or don't like to use alcohol, I'm going to be talking about it being used topically here. So it's a really great bug repellent, just as it is. So for people who are scent sensitive and don't like using essential oils, or maybe just can't handle them, because some people really can't, even the natural stuff is too much, and they have adverse effects from it, what you can do is use yarrow tincture and use that as a spray. And certainly it's going to have an aroma because yarrow has essential oils present, volatile oils, but it works really well. Just as the tincture, just put it in a bottle, spray it on yourself, spray it on your clothes, and it can be a really beautiful ally for repelling bugs of all kinds. It also can be used topically, and you might even combine it with witch hazel for this purpose, or maybe buy a bottle of pre-made witch hazel and then tincture with that to infuse yarrow leaves, flowers. It's great for tightening the pores of the skin topically. So when you think about people who are, I was saying how people who are more sensitive, they are more open to being infiltrated, they just have a harder time. They tend to have bigger pores in their skin, especially around the nose and cheeks. In general, you will notice that people with larger pores in their skin are more open in general. And so we're trying to tighten them back up and bring that closed boundary and armor back to them. So even from a sort of aesthetic skincare perspective, we can utilize yarrow in this manner. Such a cool plant. I'm going to save some more yarrow tips for you the next time we see it, because I'm sure that we will be coming around to yarrow again. All right. Okie dokie. I love all these twisted vines. They're so gorgeous. Aren't they nice? I'm weird about vines. All right, what else do we got here? More yarrow, more Queen Anne's lace. Oh, and I'm going to show you here very carefully. Take some steps closer and show you the yarrow skeleton here. Oh man, my phone is so like dirty, I can't really see what I'm showing you guys. It's so bad. Time to wipe it down. Okay, so hopefully you can see what's left over from the yarrow flower. So this is how tall it gets. You can see the leaves down at the base, but just kind of a little sneak peek of what we'll be seeing when that comes back to life, the yarrow flower. It's amazing how happy they can be wherever they are. Yeah, lots of yarrow down here. This is really cool. Beautiful. Makes me happy to see it. All right, I'm gonna walk down to the end here. Oh, I've got to pause. Found another friend I've got to talk about. All right. So this is an especially important friend. Right down here. This is mullein, Verbascum thapsus. Has some morning dew still on it, which is so gorgeous. I've been seeing a lot of memes lately about use mullein for toilet paper, and I gotta say, guys, what's the obsession with toilet paper? Like, are we really running out of it? I don't know. Use some water in your hand, you'll survive. Anyways, mullein, don't use it as toilet paper. It has tiny, lovely little hairs on it, right? But they actually can irritate you. They can irritate the skin. So my advice is don't use it. You don't need it. It's okay. Find something else to use, but don't use mullein for toilet paper. In fact, you want to use it for the lungs instead. So this is definitely a pandemic plant, but not for the use of toilet paper. The leaves are specific for lung support, and it's really the type of lung support we need right now with this COVID-19. So it's for the dry, irritated, rattly lung issue that's, you're not really producing much. There's not a lot of mucus going on. It really is very heated and irritating, and you have so many spasms that just won't stop, that it's kind of very aggressive in the sense that when you have a coughing fit and you just can't calm your lungs down. Mullein is very soothing and also productive. So it helps, those little hairs actually help to irritate the lining of the lungs to be more productive, so that it actually helps to calm the spasming of the lungs to make you stop coughing as much, because it's actually going to help you to expectorate, coat, and soothe. So a really amazing ally here. Tincture or tea. Again, the tea you really have to strain out well because of these tiny little hairs. They can, again, cause that irritation even in the throat, which is not helpful. For coughing, even though you would be getting the medicine eventually, it would calm it, but you want to avoid irritating yourself even more. The other thing about mullein leaf is it's a great one for smokers. Even if you're not really wanting to quit smoking, which is totally fine, you can add it to your smoke blends. I always like people who come to me who smoke and maybe want to play around with like trying to help their lungs out, even though maybe they're not ready to quit smoking, whatnot. I ask them to start rolling their own cigarettes and adding medicinals to them, because I love talking about smoking. I think it's such an interesting thing, because it's not at all about this. I mean, of course it is partially about the tobacco, the nicotine addiction for some folks, but it's really the act of pausing, of taking time to stop and breathe. That's literally what smoking is. It's a meditation. It's giving yourself permission to just be with your breath. And so I think that's such a valuable and interesting way to look at, what can be an addiction for people, and to show compassion around it, and also just, slowly make it even more ritualistic for folks who are trying to play around with their relationship with smoking. Because when you are rolling your own, you have to stop and you have to roll it every time. And I don't tell them to like roll a whole pack for themselves and have them pre-made. Like, stop when you want to smoke, get out your papers, get out your tobacco, and roll it as you want it, because then you are actively, consciously aware, okay, I am going to do this. And you can even, ask yourself, oh my gosh, I see a turtle floating down the river and I've never seen that before. He's so cute. I wish that I could zoom in for you. Wow, first time ever. Sorry, anyways. So as you are rolling your cigarette, you can put, intention into it. Be like, I'm doing this for myself, to give myself a break, to take more time to breathe, or maybe like, okay, do I really need the cigarette? Do I really want to be doing this right now? I'm going to keep rolling it, but maybe I won't need it after I go ahead and finish rolling it. Maybe I'll set it aside. It brings more of that practice into it. Mullein is a fantastic addition to people who are rolling their cigarettes, because when you smoke it, it helps to soothe the lungs. So even the smoke inhaled helps to coat, soothe, and helps to expectorate maybe some of that, smoker's lung congestion, getting the phlegm up and out. Maybe that is, something that is interesting to some folks who are in that, at that point of their smoking journey. But anyhow, you can smoke mullein And some people will just burn the plant, burn the leaves, and just inhale it like out of a fire-safe dish when they're dealing with bronchial issues as well. So that is another way you can utilize it, and it works beautifully. So that was just the leaves here. Now, mullein is a biennial plant, so this is its first year. Next year it will throw up its shoot and it'll be so tall, like I'm talking like 10 feet tall, and it will have these beautiful yellow like corn cob shaped flowers like on a big stalk. And the flowers, well actually maybe, you know, we're gonna probably see mullein flowers later, maybe, I don't know. I'll come back to it and add to it. I'll just say this one little thing about the mullein flowers. So mullein flowers have ability to calm and soothe nerve pain and inflammation, particularly in the ears. So for swimmer's ear and for ear infections of all kinds, especially with little ones, infusing the yellow flowers into oil, maybe adding some St. John's wort in as well, which is another amazing nerve healer, and especially for pain. Combined to oil, and just you utilize it as little drops in the ear. And it helps to not only calm the pain, soothe the nerve, but also draw out any buildup that might be going on in there as well. So I'll save the rest of my mullein. Oh, I'll say one more thing about the leaf, because it's telling me to. Sometimes they get bossy and they're like, no, keep going. All right, so mullein leaf as well can be great for the musculoskeletal system, for pain, okay? So really cool story. I had just learned this information from Matthew Wood, phenomenal teacher, about using mullein for this purpose, for this pain, especially for muscles and tendons, where even slipped discs, you can read about mullein being super duper helpful. I have not experienced that yet, but I did have a client come in for some Reiki who's having a lot of back pain. Like I think she pulled her back, like a little area like the rhomboid muscle underneath the scapula. And she was needing some assistance. So within the Reiki session, I was doing the Reiki, I decided to also use a mullein leaf and just place it directly on her back, like as a poultice. I wet actually I put a little bit of like a cloth, I think, or a napkin underneath, wet the leaf, kind of crumpled it up a little bit, put it right on there because I didn't want to irritate her skin with the fuzziness of the leaves. And I left it on there for the duration of the session. And at the end, she said it was completely gone. I peeled the leaf off and it was like kind of disintegrated. It really got absorbed right into that area of the body, and it calmed and soothed the spasm and the inflammation from the tear or from the pull that she created. So it was really cool to experience it firsthand, just randomly. I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna see. I was like, are you down? I have an experiment for you. And she's like, of course, let's just do it, because I had literally just learned about it. But it seemed to work really beautifully, and I have continued to use it ever since, not necessarily as poultices, but as tincture for specific things around muscle pain and muscle injury, etc. So that's mullein. Okay. Moving on. Right. And here's a tiny mullein. It's just fun to show you different examples of our friends. There's a lot. I'm not surprised. It knows. Okay, here's a beautiful plot of taller, bigger evening primrose and taller garlic mustard. So you can see the flowers are just about to pop. And again, this is the time to eat it. So delicious, so great for circulation, digestion. It has a beautiful flavor of the garlic and mustard, that warming, heating. Anything that's warming and heating just helps things to get moving, helps things to just be activated in the body. So I wanted to show you that little growth spurt. Let's keep going. How are we doing on time, Akil? I'm sorry, it's funny because I'm using my phone, but I can't see the clock on here, on our time frame. Sorry, I'm bugging you, my timekeeper as well. And another mullein hiding. Oh my goodness, we've passed so many mulleins here. Okay, great. So we have time for a couple more friends. Oh, look at these beautiful daffodils. They're so happy. So happy. Thank you for being a good sport, Mikhail. I appreciate it. All right, let's see if there's anybody over here. Oh, yeah. All right, so we're going to talk about red clover. We'll end things with red clover. All right. So, oops, am I stepping in something? Okay. So here we have red clover, or purple clover to be more accurate, because the flowers are not red at all. It's a little 3-leaf. What an amazing plant. It's in the pea family. And the very first thing I learned about this plant was from my first teacher, Wendy Fogg. And she said that if women, little girls, started eating red clover blossoms from the time they turned 5 through all of life, that they would never have a menstrual cramp. That it was so balancing to the female system because it is rich in phytoestrogens, that it would help to just combat all of the ups and downs of hormones and cycles, and really preemptively relieve PMS symptoms, which I thought was so cool. So that really stuck with me. The other thing that stuck with me is the signature of this plant. So you can see the little sort of V shape or U shape signature on each petal, or each section of the leaf here. And that is the signature of the uterus. So this is very much a female plant in the way that it helps the reproductive organs for female bodies. And it has a lot of other virtues as well. But phytoestrogens, there's so much information out there, and I flip back and forth around them, because there are folks who have too much estrogen, folks who have things like endometriosis or imbalances like polycystic ovarian disease or disorder. And so it brings up lots of questions. Well, why would we want to be taking plant estrogen then? And one of the arguments is that it's the xenoestrogens, the synthetic estrogens, that are wreaking far more havoc in our bodies than the naturally occurring estrogens. And one of the things that plant estrogens do is they fill in like the receptor sites, because we have receptor sites for different kinds of hormones, etc., in our bodies. And once they're filled and locked in, that's it. Nothing else can kind of like the key in the hole that the key goes into. Nothing else can get in once there's one key has been fitted. So, oh man, I apologize for the construction noise. So phytoestrogens have the ability to basically put lots of keys into those receptor sites and block xenoestrogens from getting in. Phytoestrogens are very balancing and supportive to people, and if you're getting too many of them, the body has the ability to flush them out and to release them from the body, whereas the synthetic xenoestrogens just get stuck there and build up and start to create more imbalance in the body. So in that sense, phytoestrogens can be healing for anyone, regardless of your hormonal imbalance. But there is still a lot of information to the contrary, where if you do have an excess of estrogen, you should not be taking plant estrogens at all. And so again, there's an ongoing debate. So I'll kind of just leave it there. But for folks who are not struggling with estrogen, an overabundance of estrogen, then please utilize our friend red clover through, especially if you're female bodied, through all of life, because it's so wonderful. It's really mineral rich, so similar to nettle in the way of offering you energy and support in that sense, like another multivitamin herb, so you could combine it with your nettle infusion. And it's really the flowering tops that have the most medicine. So really waiting for those flowers to pop because they have the most value. Leaves have some as well, but it's really the blossoms. Another really amazing aspect, and I did bring this up briefly when we were talking about burdock last time, is red clover's ability to encapsulate cancerous cells and malformed cells and literally flush them from the body. So red clover has been used in cancer treatment for many, many moons, and with a lot of success. So it is a blood cleanser, an alternative, so similar to burdock, where it helps to cool heated conditions from the blood, bring balance to many organ systems. It has an affinity for the lungs, but it is specific for supporting all functions, especially the liver and digestion, which of course relates to skin issues again. So it's a kind of a very close cousin to burdock in many ways, because burdock is also very helpful for skin conditions. So red clover can work in a similar way around psoriasis and rosacea and eczema, etc. And this would be, of course, internally using it. And because, the liver component is so, closely tied to skin health, and of course digestion as well. But specifically here we've got liver. Kate Gilday speaks, she's a beautiful herbalist up in upstate New York, and she says that even the energy, sort of the spiritual component of this plant, is that it helps people, and I was just kind of really taken aback when I heard this from her. It helps people to decide they want to keep living. So it's for people, like, especially, if we're talking about cancers, and when we get that horrible news and we have to sit with, like, are we going to fight, or is it just my time? Do I want to keep pushing through, or am I done? That's, like, I'm sure a big question for a lot of folks. Maybe for some people it's an automatic response, and others they have to sit with it. But red clover, from that spiritual emotional component, helps to allow people to answer that question and gives them that strength of perseverance to want to continue to push through and to continue living. And I was like, whoa, like, that is really potent. That's deep stuff there for that plant, on top of the fact that it can physically help to flush malformed cells and cancerous cells from the body. So cool. Such an amazing plant. Let's see, there was one other thing I wanted to mention about red clover, and it was in regards to the lungs, because it is a lung healer as well. But I wanted to, let's see, I haven't looked at my cheat sheet yet, but I want to look at it here, because I wanted to say something about the lung component that I cannot recall now. Here we go. Well, I guess I did say everything. Okay, so around the lung thing, that one thing that I didn't say is it's for, like, drippy lung conditions. So whereas mullein was for dry, irritated coughs, red clover is more for, like, when things are like the thin, clear liquid, drippy through the nose and then trickling down into the throat, so that you need things to kind of expectorate out. That would be red clover indication there. And it also, the one other thing I wanted to mention about red clover is that it also helps to flush the lymphatic function, which is kind of goes without saying with alternatives. They flush the whole system, the whole body in general, but it has an affinity to the area of lymph around the throat and neck. So where dandelion and violet focus around the breast tissue and the armpit area within the lymphatic system, we have red clover that is more focused upon the throat and kind of behind the ears area. All right, well, I guess that's going to wrap up our second weed walk. because I'm doing this one again, but on the flip side of the mill, because that was just one stretch. And what a beautiful day for it. Thank you for joining me, Mikhail, and all of you other friends who are going to tune in later. Please take your time, post questions. Mikhail, if you have questions later, if you want me to reiterate things. What was I going to check on? Oh, the Rugeli versus the major for the plantain. I'll do that. I may have said something else I was going to check and I forgot. And there's one other book resource I wanted to share with you as well, which is about invasive plant medicine and invasive weeds and their ecological sort of offerings for why they grow where they grow. Oh my goodness, is that? Oh, it is. I found one more friend I have to show you. But anyways, I'll post those books to our page. Okay, how funny. Here I am thinking I'm done. There's one more. Oh, Mikhail, I'm so glad that you've enjoyed it. All right, one more friend, another surprise. I was surprised about nettle, but this is another extra super duper exciting surprise. This is St. John's wort, and it's teeny tiny little form. I love this plant so much. I probably say that with every plant, but it's because it's true. So this guy is so little, I don't want to pluck him, but maybe as time goes on, maybe I can show you a little bit here. This is Hypericum perforatum, and you can see little perforations. If I were able to hold this up to the sunlight better, you can see tiny, tiny little holes that are actually, it looks like someone took a little needle and poked them. Anyhow, that's its signature. You would want to harvest this when it's the flowering tops. The flowers, like red clover, have the most medicine in them. But this is another trauma herb. This is another herb specific to nerve damage and pain. It's also, of course, well known for mood and supporting serotonin production in the body. Love this plant. I talked about combining it with mullein flowers to deal with nerve pain within the ears. This plant is so cool topically because internally, it's ruled by the sun, so it's a sun plant. It brings in more of that sun energy to our minds, bodies, and spirits. And what's so cool is that when you take this plant internally, it's cool, but it's also, you have to be mindful of it. If you're taking a lot of it, and I'm talking like bucket loads of tinctures and teas, etc., it does make you photosensitive or sun sensitive to burning out in the sun. So you need to be mindful through the spring and summer, if you're spending a lot of time outdoors, just to cover up a little bit more. Be mindful of your St. John's wort intake. Just wear extra sunblock or sun protection. Oh, I'm so glad, Mikhail. Thank you for that. But externally, so if you were to infuse this into oil, and basically, by the way, making St. John's wort oil is probably one of my favorite oils to make because the yellow flowers make your oil blood red. It's gorgeous. It's like magic. Alchemy in the works. So cool. Anyhow, so topically, it can be used as sun protection. A very low sunblock, but solar protective regardless. So internally, it can make you sensitive, but externally, it acts as a sunblock. So cool. Minimally, we've got shea butter and coconut oil that also is a gentle sun, I shouldn't say sunblock, but it protects us from getting burned. It's a very low SPF, but combining all three, so if you were to infuse this plant into shea butter, into coconut oil, you would have an even more potent protective agent, even just for like a regular everyday moisturizer or balm that you might use. So anyways, cool little friend. I've got a lot more to say about St. John's wort, but we're gonna wait till it gets a little bit bigger and we can admire him even more. But such a fun friend to find at our last little bit of this weed walk here. All right, so thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please keep your questions coming and any concerns, whatever you want. I'm here for you. I will be checking in on the page, and have a gorgeous day. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you, I think on Saturday is our next walk. All right, guys, talk to you later.